Hello, welcome back to Bet Builders on Free Super Tips. I'm joined today by Joel Thomlinson. Of course, it used to be Football Daily superstar, now Sky Sports International. Welcome to the show, Joe.
I'll take that. That's not a bad introduction.
Not bad, is it? You're like a wonder kid that's now becoming an elite forward. That's how I describe you right now. But let's start by talking a little bit about the Premier League. We've seen so many 3-3 draws in the Premier League this season. Why?
Oh my word, I do not have a clue. I mean, you've got to put it down, I think, first and foremost to the lack of fans. When a team is kind of behind and it's quite a dull game, the fans can either get you up or they can settle you down. And no fans, I think when you ship one, panic stations start to happen. That's exactly what we saw at Tottenham on the weekend. It
was an interesting one. Of course, we're going to be reviewing that game, talking about Tottenham's game against Burnley. That's the last game, so stay tuned to that. But again, game week 6 in the Premier League, it is flying by.
I know.
Today we're going to be talking Chelsea, Manchester United. That is the big one. Aubameyang's bit of his dodgy form. Can Leeds finally get a win and all this good stuff all together? Of course, if you want to check out more tips, go over to freesupertips.com. But before we dive into the action, we've got to review what we did last week because we had 5 winners on the show. That is a reason to subscribe and like that goddamn video.
Wow.
It's big.
5 winners.
It's pretty big.
Pressure
for you here, Joe, because we've only had one guest win so far.
Okay.
So it's on your back right now. You've said you went a bit conservative.
I've gone quite conservative.
I like that strategy because I go conservative. And last week, 2 big winners. First up in the Chelsea-Southampton game, Timo Werner anytime, over 2.5 goals, and both teams to score.
I like that.
I knew it'd be a banger. We've been backing Timo for the whole season, so it was going to happen. It was sensational, 2 goals and an assist. And next up, the other bet that we pulled off, a 7-2 in the Tottenham-West Ham game. Kane anytime, Son anytime.
Always.
Almost a tap-in. Always go for that, but I've slightly changed it today. In terms of FST's bets for the weekend at 1, we had another one in the Chelsea-Southampton game, over 3.5 goals, and Danny Ings to score any time. Again, that seems like a pretty simple one. We had one in the Newcastle-Man United game, both teams to score on most goals in the second half. A little bit niche, but came in.
I like that as well,
finally, FST with the trophy for last week, Liverpool versus Everton, of course, at Goodison Park. Everton double chance, both teams to score on Dominic Calvert-Lewin any time.
Classic.
Are you excited now?
I am. I'm buzzing to get going. Let's have it.
First up, we're going to be diving into Aston Villa versus Leeds. The last time the two sides met was in 2004. Can you name the goal scorers?
Wow, it's a throwback. Lee Hendry, maybe?
Not Lee Hendry. It's actually Juan Pablo Angel and Ronnie Johnson. But last time, Villa, of course, beat Leicester City 1-0. Very different from last season, though. Last season, they couldn't buy a clean sheet. They conceded the second most goals in the Premier League. This time, a complete opposite. What's changed?
Well, I think a few different things. I think Ezri Konsa's really come good. Looks an incredibly exciting young defender. Villa have really got a bit of gold dust on their hands there, I think. Tyrone Mings, I'm still not overly convinced about. Not my favourite defender in the Premier League. But when you partner him with Konsa, I think Konsa's a little bit more settled because I think Mings can be quite rash running out of the line. I also think Matty Cash has been a big improvement in that fullback slot. And having Douglas Luiz at his best is key for Villa. In front of that back line, shepherding and shielding them. Because when teams are running at them, I think that's when they can look a little bit vulnerable. When Douglas Luiz is sat in there doing his job like he did towards the end of last season when he was one of their best players, I think they look pretty solid.
I can't believe you've not mentioned Emi Martinez. The man's got the best save percentage in the Premier League. He's had 15 shots on his goal. He saved 12 of them.
Unreal. And he was sensational towards the back end for Arsenal as well, wasn't he? Some Arsenal fans that I know wanted him kept over Leno, which I don't agree with.
If I'm DOF of Arsenal Football Club, I sell Leno because his price is nice and high, and I bring in Emi Martinez.
Wow. I mean, I felt like it was a little bit of a hot streak, I have to be honest, in terms of Emi Martinez's form, but he's proven it at the start of the season. Still proven it at that price tag as well. It's pretty impressive.
It's very impressive. Leeds as well have impressed us this season, but Calvin Phillips is out for 6 weeks.
Huge.
That's going to be a massive loss for Marcel Bielsa and Leeds United.
Yeah, huge blow. But do you know what? If there's one manager in the league that I think can find a system to adapt to a player being missing, it is probably Marcelo Bielsa. So I'm excited to see how he changes it and tweaks it. I think the return of Pablo Hernandez is a big win for them, though. So I just trust Bielsa at the end of the day to get the job done.
Absolutely. In terms of Calvin Phillips, most chances created for Leeds, most as a DM in the Premier League. Tackles, he's only beaten by Romeo and MacArthur. He's doing everything you want a modern DM to do, so he will be a big miss. But you mentioned Pablo Hernandez.
Yeah.
Is he in your bet?
I don't think he is. I don't think he's in my bet. I have to be honest, because I'm not convinced he will start. I think he's still going to be eased in. And you know, the likes of Click have still looked really strong in those attacking midfield positions. So I'd be surprised if Pablo started on the weekend, but when he is back fully firing, I think he's going to have a big impact on this Leeds side.
Well, let's take a look at your bets right now. Is Pablo in? Is Pablo out? No. Both teams to score, yes. And Aston Villa to win the game.
Yeah.
Interesting. Talk me through it.
Well, I'm back in Villa. I think that their form coming into this game will just continue to roll on, to be honest with you. I think the Calvin Phillips loss is big, and as good as Leeds look going forward, they are still vulnerable at the back. When Wolves actually started to come out and play against them on Monday, specifically in the second half, I thought, oh, they are still a little bit vulnerable back there. And I know that Robin Koch started really well, but that lack of Ben White back there is a big blow for them. I think Villa are going to concede because Leeds just are so dominant on the attack. And I think this could be like a 3-2, high-scoring game in which Villa come out on top.
Not another one.
Maybe.
We're getting treated too well in the Premier League this season. Let's jump on to my bets for this game. We're going to go Villa, draw, double chance, under 3.5 goals in the game. I'm going against you. You've gone for the barnstormer. I've gone for the tactical battle.
Can't believe it.
Can't believe it.
No, I think this is going to be goals.
You think it's going to be goals galore, but I've got some stats here. Aston Villa are unbeaten in the last 8 Premier League games, the longest current run of any side in the competition. If you compare that to their previous 8, where they got 20 points in the previous 26 matches, they got 19 points. Not very good. I think you're looking at someone like Patrick Bamford, potentially could score for Leeds. Done well in the last 3 away games, scored. But I just think it could be really tight. Okay. Neither team can really afford to lose this game.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Something about Villa this season, I think they had probably the 3rd or 4th best window of any team in the league. And I think it's starting to show. And Ross Barkley looks a really good signing.
He does, really look explosive, getting shots on goal. Let's take a look at free super tips, bet builder as well, because those guys usually get it right. Let's be honest with ourselves. We've got Leeds draw, double chance, under 3 goals in the game. So they've gone for a similar vibe for me, picking Leeds United instead of Aston Villa. But we're not seeing many goals in this job.
Wow, maybe I'm totally wrong here, but I've just got a feeling this is going to be goals, goals, goals.
Now to London for the 12 o'clock kickoff. West Ham versus Manchester City. The first time that West Ham go into this game ahead of Man City in the league since 2009. Beautiful stats right there. Yeah,
I mean, they've started the season, to many people's surprise, mine included, really well. Well, last 3 game weeks, that is, at least. And I'm not sure how they're doing it, to be totally honest, because I thought they had a horrific summer. I'm not overly convinced about David Moyes as a manager in this West Ham side, but he's just proven me wrong, because I thought after the 3 goals went in, admittedly 3 really poor goals to concede against Tottenham, they actually looked very solid. They stuck in the game. I think in the second half they were probably the better team, and across the course of the 90, I don't think you could have said they didn't deserve something out of the game. So I wouldn't be shocked to see them get something against Man City, but Man City, when they come up against West Ham, they just turn into Barcelona sort of 08-09, don't they? It's just impossible to face. So I still think Man City win the game, but I've been shocked and impressed by West Ham this season.
Yeah, really, really shocked. Of course, that 3-3 draw, a great game for the Premier League.
Unreal.
The goal at the end from Lanzini was just a joke. I loved Ogbonna's block off the ball. Not made enough of that. He completely shut the play down, allowed Lanzini to get the strike on goal. Do you think Lanzini deserves to start?
It's a difficult one. Is Saïd Benrahma fit? Do we know if Saïd Benrahma's fit to play the game? If he's fit, then I think you start Saïd Benrahma in there.
Because that's an interesting one. Obviously, he's not really played that much this season. West Ham don't look too bad going forward. Bowen's had a pretty good campaign so far. We already mentioned Lanzini's goal. There's a lot of options there. I think David Moyes has got to find that starting 11. And against Manchester City, he probably wants to go for Masuaku as a left wing back, and he wants to shore it up because that's what's worked for them. But in terms of Manchester City and Pep Guardiola, I thought they were brilliant last week. The diamond that he played in midfield with Fred at the back, Fred at front was fantastic. You know, it really exposed what Arsenal are doing well. You know, that left wing back coming inside, be it Saka or Ainsley Maitland-Niles, controlling that player. And I thought it was just a really good performance from City. Not enough credit for them.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because it's going to be a very different test on the weekend. I can really see Thomas Souček giving Ruben Dias a lot of problems from those deep swinging balls. I think Antonio is going to cause them some problems as well. Basically, if I was West Ham, I'd be sticking the big boys on those centre-backs. Nathan Ake versus Thomas Souček from the corners. Thomas Souček versus Ruben Dias from open play. I just think that could be a problem area for Man City, the height in the back line. But overall, for me, I do still think Man City have got too much for them.
So you're back in Man City?
I am back in Man City.
We're going to take away the Souček, the Mikel Antonio vibes we just talked about. Let's take a look at your bet right now. What have you gone with for today? We've got over three goals in the game. Aguero anytime.
Yeah, I do think that Sergio Aguero will score at the weekend. He needs some goals soon, Sergio Aguero, because there is a little bit of pressure on him, I feel, this season, because it has to end eventually, his love affair
does.
with Manchester City. And it feels like this could be the last major injury he can afford to have at Man City before they say, OK, we've got to either stick with Gabriel Jesus, who's also injured, obviously, or look to sign another striker and move him on. I saw Pep speaking earlier in the week that he's got to earn his new contract, which is going to be tough if he's continuously injured. So I think this is the game that he hits the ground running. He loves playing against West Ham, always scores against West Ham. And I do think this could be a bit of a Rick-rolling, sort of a 4-1 with a Souček header early doors and then Man City just walking all over him.
Interesting, because Aguero's been directly involved in 11 goals in the last 12 Premier League games against West Ham United, so he's a man that does like to play the Hammers. So that's obviously quite a nice one there. Over 3 goals in the game. You know, you're looking at Manchester City. They've won their last 5 away games in all competitions at the London Stadium with an aggregate score of 22-1.
There we go.
So there we go. That's a great bet. I think this is the one where you're going to come up clutch here. I think this is big. I've gone really, really wild. This is probably my biggest bet of the day. We've gone an 18-1 shot. Man City to win the game. Aguero to score any time. We're agreeing on that point. We're agreeing with Man City to win. Souček any time.
I agree with that. I actually agree with that.
It's one of those ones where you're looking at your XG models, you're in your spreadsheets. You know, you select players with no goals in the Premier League.
I think that's a great bet. 18
and Souček,
it's unreal.
top XG without a goal. I like that. Over 3.5 goals is a stat we mentioned before. Aggregate score 22-1 for Manchester City. I thought it was a bit crazy. Now I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, all right there, Dave. You've done all right there. But that's not the real question, because my bets don't always come in. FST's bets, usually when they build a bet, it comes off over 3.5 goals in the game. Both teams to score. And Antonio, who you were talking about before, Joe, anytime. Yeah,
I do think that hype could be an issue for Manchester City. But nevertheless, Ruben Diaz, there's been a lot said about him, and he's, I think, started all right for Manchester City. So fingers crossed for him, anyway, he can have a big game in this one, because this is probably one of the most physical front lines he's going to face in the league.
And then the new Fellaini, of course, Souček coming in as well. I do like what Diaz has done. I thought, like you're saying, comfortable start. Same with Nathan Ake. They've both slotted in really well to Pep's system, and you've got to give him credit, because there's been a lot of signings that Pep's made at centre-half that just haven't worked.
And they haven't played alongside Laporte, really, yet either, who is the key, the mainstay, and I think will improve both of them when he's in the team.
Next, on to the thriller. Fulham versus Crystal Palace. Stop what you're doing when this game is on. Get your feet, get yourself on the sofa, because it's going to be a bang. No, I think the notes are a little bit wrong here. Last time out, Crystal Palace became the first team ever to just have one shot in a match in the Premier League. Incredible. And that shot was a penalty.
Incredible.
Absolutely incredible. They've also created the fewest chances in the Premier League. Royston has got to give him a bit of freedom, right?
I mean, he does, but he's also pulled out some good results. That 3-1 at Old Trafford, not to be sniffed at, of course, Dave. And I just think he's got to start playing Eze centrally. Eze does his best work in the hole, and I really don't like to see him pushed out wide to make way for other players in this side. I want to see Eze through the middle, and I'd almost like to see him playing off the back of a front two of Zaha and Ayew. I don't think it's ever going to happen under Hodgson, because it's a little bit too progressive, but I just don't like him out wide.
I quite like the idea of Eze and Zaha up front as a two, and wherever they want to go, they want to go, because Hodgson's always going to play a very workmanlike midfield four, so why not play 2 superstars up top? In terms of superstars, though, Fulham, Lookman.
I know.
Could be one of the most underrated signings of the summer. Had a good time in Leipzig, didn't get enough minutes, but was really good against Sheffield United, created the most chance on the pitch, completed the most dribbles, had 3 shots, scored a goal. Is he someone that can really spark life into this Scott Parker Fulham side?
Well, somebody's got to. My word, somebody's got to. Yeah, I think so. I think Mitrovic needs to start scoring some goals.
Missed the penalty last week.
That is the key. Mitrovic scoring goals is the only way Fulham stay in this division. He has to get upwards of 10 goals for them to stand any chance. And at the moment, he still looks a bit rusty, of course. Played in that playoff final with kind of a pulled hammy, didn't he? Should never have come on in that one. So maybe he's still carrying a little bit of an injury, but he needs to start banging and banging quickly.
Does he make your bet? Have you put him in? Have you put him in as a bagsman this weekend?
I have.
That is bold. That is really bold.
Do you know what? I do back Roy Hodgson as one of the best defensive managers in the league, to be honest with you. I think he forms a fantastic backline given some of the mediocre assets he's got. But Mitrovic against this backline, I think, is the perfect striker, where they can load balls into him. He can be physical in and around the box. And he's on penalties, of course. I know he missed last weekend, but
wasn't a bad penalty. It hit the bar. It was a high. You know, it's the target. It's going in.
Yeah, I just think this could be the game for him against Palace, who look a little bit underwhelming, but it's guaranteed to be a low scorer, isn't it?
Yeah, maybe don't watch this game this weekend. My bet's pretty similar to that. I've gone Crystal Palace to win to 0 and Zaha any time.
That's a dull bet.
That isn't great. That when I was writing that, I was like, that's not great. But only Heung-min Son and Mohamed Salah have scored more than Zaha as a midfielder this season. This is a Roy Hodgson type of game. Let's take a look at free super tips. Bet builder as well. They've gone Palace, draw, double, chance under 3 goals in the game with Zaha anytime. Quite similar.
Boring bet as well.
Boring as anything.
Back Mitrovic.
I think that's enough of this game. Let's move on. Now on to the most played fixture in Premier League history in all competitions, of course. Manchester United versus Chelsea. That came out of absolutely nowhere, didn't it? An absolute banging stat there. The last time, of course, they played each other. Chelsea won the game 3-0 in the FA Cup semi-final. Bit of a problem for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, do you think?
Well, it's a difficult one because I felt like before that game, Ole really had Frank Lampard's card. Of course, he was beating him in sort of all competitions. I remember the free kick really, really vividly from Marcus Rashford as well. I remember images of Paul Pogba arriving late in the box to score headers. But Man United have a serious problem at the moment at home. Old Trafford is not the place we want to be playing. We're better away from home. I'm worried about this one, if I'm honest. I don't know whether we're going to play with the 3 at the back system that Frank found us out with in the FA Cup semi-final. The FA Cup, was it the FA Cup semi-final?
Semi-final.
Yeah, it was the semi-final. Or whether or not we're going to go back to the 4, because the performance against PSG was one of the best I can remember in a long time. So I personally would stick with the 3. I know that you would go back to the 4.
Yeah. I think it's dependent on what Lampard does. Because Lampard really explodes Ollie, playing 3 at the back himself, 2 attacking midfielders, narrow against our, our 1 DM, causes massive problems, or against our 2 guys behind them. I really think that if that's the case, you need to go to a 4. United need to pick a team that's flexible enough to switch between 4 and 3. Maybe Telles playing on the left-hand side and Luke Shaw, because then you can push Telles further forward if you need to.
That's an interesting one.
You can change the shape, and I think Ollie needs to be very reactive because, like you're saying, when Lampard's been playing the 4-3-3, Ollie has just absolutely steamrolled him. Absolutely steamrolled him in that 3-4-1-2, and I did like it against PSG, but I just don't think Lampard's... I think Lampard's going to play a back 3. I think that's what it's looking like for me.
Okay, so if he plays the back 3, I presume it's going to be Reece James and it will be Ben Chilwell as a wing back, which is an interesting one because I'm not sure whether Ben Chilwell is suited to a left wing back. He might be a stronger proposition as a left back, in my opinion, and that's somewhere I think we can really look to expose Chelsea on the break in the wide areas. And if that's the case, you've got to play the pace through the wide areas.
Yeah, absolutely.
And maybe almost Bruno as like a false 9 in there with those split strikers that we've seen loads of success with against some of the big sides. But Ollie has a great record in the big games. I'm feeling fairly confident. I'm not saying we're going to win the game, but I think Chelsea are there to be got at the back. That defence looks so vulnerable. I'd imagine Edouard Mendy's going to start in between the sticks. I saw Frank today saying that he's going to be his number 1. If I was Man United, I would be raining shots down on Edouard Mendy. And we do like to shoot a lot, especially Bruno.
Exactly, that's a big thing. The shots from range is a constant threat from United, and I do think that diamond that was sort of played at the last sort of 20 minutes with Pogba when he came on, that would work against this Chelsea team if they play for it at the back. So I think this is going to be such an interesting tactical battle between the 2 managers. Substitutions are going to be massive, which sounds like a weird thing to say, but both teams, of course, playing Champions League midweek. Chelsea having a bit of a poor result against Sevilla, 0-0 at home. Yeah,
it was a poor result, but overall, I think Frank might well be happy to see a clean sheet. I think it's just I think he's had less than 5 clean sheets as Chelsea manager. I think he's only had 1 away from home in the Premier League, which is a total shock to me. But Thiago Silva will probably be back in for that one. I think that's a big, big win for Frank because he just settles everyone back there down. I know he had the stinker against West Brom, but overall I think he's probably their best centre-back, and that's worrisome at 36 years old.
It is a little bit worrisome. They kind of have too many centre-backs. But enough about the centre-backs. Let's talk about the bets. Who are you backing, Joe? Are you going for Lampard or are you going for Ollie?
I am going...
For neither!
For neither. I actually think this is going to be a high-scoring draw. But Marcus Rashford loves to play against Chelsea. He loves to play in big games. His record in big games is absolutely phenomenal. We saw it again against PSG, and I think he's going to cause that mediocre centre-back pairing or centre-back 3, if they have it, a really, really tough time. And Manchester United also look vulnerable, and Chelsea look amazing going forward. So I just think this game is going to be plenty of goals. Man United probably shipping the first couple, but nevertheless, I think a draw, high scoring could be the result here.
There's 2 things I want to bring up there. First up, Marcus Rashford scored 5 goals against Chelsea, the most against any club in the Premier League. But also, if you look at so far in 2020, only Arsenal have dropped more points from winning positions, and only United have gained more points from losing positions. So that kind of falls into that narrative of Chelsea going ahead and then United coming back. But I see it completely different. I'm going to be honest.
Really?
I think it's going to be a big United win. Fernandes to score any time, and then Marcus Rashford to score first.
Okay.
So of those 5 goals that I just mentioned there's 2 braces in that.
Yeah.
So the 3 games that Marcus Rashford has scored against Chelsea, always scored the first goal.
It's an interesting
And I just think that, look, the momentum.
Yeah.
Had a bit of some moments in the game against PSG that he probably could have done better.
Definitely.
Could have just drived the goal and got a shot away. But the goal was sensational.
Yeah.
And I think that momentum, scoring that goal late, is going to be so fired up for this game against Chelsea. So we've gone 28-1.
That's a big bet.
We've gone pretty big this week. We've gone a little bit wild. But if it comes in,
yeah, I mean, I think it's brave because you've got 2 goal scorers listed down there as well, so you have to be pretty specific. And I think Bruno, at the moment, is obviously Manchester United's most instrumental player in nearly everything that happens, but can he keep playing this amount of games? He's got to play against Chelsea because it's a big match, but eventually Van der Beek's got to start a game.
He does, and I do like Donny van der Beek. What I'd quite like to see is if they play 3 attacking midfielders in Donny centrally, Bruno from the left, Mata from the right.
Yeah.
That could be really good to speeden up that tempo in the final third. And I don't think Lampard's going to expect that.
Yeah.
We saw that was the sort of combination that got United back in the game against Newcastle. Donny especially just quickening the tempo up with incisive one-touch play. I just think that if you want to curveball it, in this situation, because you can change it off the bench.
And because there's no Martial either, Martial's still banned, that might be the way he goes. But equally, I wouldn't be surprised as a total shock just to see Cavani in the starting lineup. I think that sort of thing where OLE...
Cavani versus Thiago Silva.
People. It's a match made in heaven, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's take a look if free super tips in their bet builder have got Cavani to score any time. Unfortunately, they don't, but they got United double chance. Draw, that's quite nice. Most goals in the second half, like that. Over 3.5 goals in the game, and both teams to score, yes.
Yeah, I do think it's going to be plenty of goals in it because neither team can defend.
Simple as that. Next up, we're going to be talking about a Van Dijk-less Liverpool up against Sheffield United. A big game for both teams. What do you think the impact will be, Virgil van Dijk dropping out this Liverpool team?
Monumental. It's absolutely massive. I think not only his footballing ability, but his leadership ability within that back 4 unit cannot be underestimated. He sets the line, he sets the tempo of the game. His distribution from deep is so key to how Liverpool set up with the fullbacks high up the pitch and his ability to pick them out. So I think it's a huge miss. If there's one player in this Liverpool side that couldn't afford to get injured, it was Van Dijk. Because I think if Salah or Mane got injured, the other one might be able to chip in. Diogo Jota looks very strong coming in from Wolves. But having sold Lovren, it now looks like a little bit of a thin defence, and I wouldn't be surprised to see Fabinho used as a centre-back throughout the course of this injury, to be totally honest, just because of that distribution from deep.
I completely agree. I was going to ask you, how would you set up Liverpool? Would you go with a back 3, a back 4?
No, I've got to stick with a back 4, I think, to get the best out of the fullbacks, because that's where all the creativity comes from. I think I would probably go with Fabinho and Matip as my centre-back partnership, but I know that Matip obviously picked up an injury as well at the weekend against Everton, so it might well end up being Fabinho and Gomez, which I don't think is as strong. Obviously, nobody's as strong as Virgil van Dijk, but this is very reminiscent, isn't it, of the Laporte injury last season, and Man City didn't deal with it. Didn't deal with it at all. Point, So I think that it's one of the biggest injury problems that could have happened to any team in world football. Yeah,
it's insane. Obviously, Jurgen Klopp calling him the best centre-back in world football this week, talking about the injury. But I do like the potential of Fabinho as a centre-back. He's so dominant 1v1. And I think that's why Virgil van Dijk has got such a high level, because he's dominant in, if the ball's in the air, if it's on the deck, he just wins it back. And we saw Fabinho play next to Virgil van Dijk against Chelsea. Kept Timo Werner at bay. There's a few times 1v1. You're thinking the pace of Werner, Fabinho's in trouble. Dealt with the situation. So I think if Liverpool do start with that, I think that means that the system may change. You potentially could play Thiago now as the single pivot, a bit more creativity in that area, which could help Liverpool further up the pitch. There's a bit of a problem with their fullbacks at the moment. So Trent Alexander-Arnold and Robertson, in terms of shot creating actions, have halved per 90.
Yeah.
So there is something here that we need to address as from a Liverpool perspective in terms of who comes in for Van Dijk, how to get the best out of the fullbacks. That's why the back 3 may be better. We've seen the impact of wing backs in world football recently.
Yeah, I wouldn't be the biggest fan, having watched Trent play as a wing back for England, and admittedly Gareth Southgate is no Jurgen Klopp. But I do think he's better delivering the ball from deep. When he's at the byline and trying to beat a man in a 1v1, as wing-backs often have to do, I don't think that's necessarily his game. I think he's better in that sort of half space where the defender doesn't know whether to come out to him, the midfielder doesn't know whether to come out to him, that sort of Kevin De Bruyne area of balls in behind the back line. So I think that's a problem. I think the biggest problem with no Van Dijk is that leadership, though. You miss a massive amount when he's not on the pitch. You saw it for both of Everton's goals. The work at the corners, the set pieces, the crosses. I don't think Dominic Calvert-Lewin gets such a free header if Van Dijk's on the pitch. I don't think Michael Keane gets an easy run off the back of Fabinho if Van Dijk's on the pitch. So those are the big areas I think that they're going to struggle.
It is all Liverpool we're talking about at the moment. Sheffield United, of course, have failed to keep a clean sheet in the Premier League after last season, only being behind Burnley, Man City and Liverpool. Little bit of a worry there. Could be down to the goalkeeper. But let's talk about the bets. What have you gone for? You're going to go for a simple Liverpool home win?
Yeah, I think Liverpool come out on top here. I'm not the biggest fan of Sheffield United this season at all. I think the injury to O'Connell is absolutely massive, and the loss of Dean Henderson is really, really hampering them. And I think they'll be in and around a relegation scrap, to be totally honest with you. So I do think Liverpool come out on top, prove a lot of people wrong. Sadio Mane always seems to do the business when I need him to in my fantasy football team. So I thought, why not in terms of the bets as well? So yeah, I think Liverpool will absolutely batter Sheffield United on the weekend just to set the tone post that Van Dijk injury, and that's what Klopp will be demanding.
It's a big, big game for Liverpool Football Club. I think I'm backing Jurgen Klopp's men. To win the game, I'm going to go Firmino anytime and over 3.5 goals. Similar trends.
Similar, but Firmino never scores at home, so you've been brave there.
It's brave, but it's one of those things this season in terms of XG. Top striker who hasn't scored a goal yet. I'm backing that. So
hasn't scored a goal yet.
This is what
These
things will come. These things will come. I'm positive XG stats, and that's why I'm going to go Firmino. I also think in terms of a back three, the false nine always going to be a little bit of a problem. Who's going to pick him up? Is someone going to step out, follow him? Then the movement in back line. I think there's a few problems for Sheffield United. But there's my bets 9-4, a little bit safe. Let's take a look at free super tips and bet builder as well. Liverpool to win the game over 3.5 goals on Mane anytime. Very similar, but switching out the forward.
Yeah, I mean, I'm backing Mane as well. I like Firmino. I know he's obviously so crucial to this Liverpool system, but his finishing over the last sort of 12 months has really fallen off a cliff, and obviously gets in amazing positions. Like you said, his XG is so high, but I don't know what's going on with him, whether it's just a lack of confidence maybe.
Maybe it's a lack of confidence at Anfield in front of the crowd. No crowd there, goal time. But Mane's always the one when I look at Liverpool, and he's going to make the difference. Mohamed Salah gets the headlines, Mane's the key guy.
Yeah, I love Sadio Mane. I mean, his running in behind cannot be underestimated. I think that's so key to Liverpool's system, his ability to stretch a defence. And that's what a lot of top teams, I think, maybe Manchester City included at the moment, don't have. That the legs when Leroy Sané used to run in and stretch a defence, they haven't replaced. Whereas Sadio Mane just pulls teams apart, and that allows players like Firmino to do the best work in the space.
Next up, Don Carlos Toffees, dropping over to the south coast to face Ralph Hasenhüttl's Southampton. This could be a good game. Everton seem to be so good getting in behind defences. Southampton seem to have a really high line at the moment and keep getting penetrated. Is it something that Ralph needs to tweak?
I think so. Obviously at Chelsea on the weekend, they started so poor. And that's obviously something that he will have worked on this week, because they cannot afford to start like that against Everton, and we're slightly fortunate that Chelsea didn't punish them more early doors as well. But yeah, you spoke about it there. The high line it is such chaos in that Southampton team. And I understand he's trying to press very high, a little bit Jurgen Klopp-esque in that style. But the trouble is, I don't feel like he's got the athleticism of the centre-halves where Klopp does with a player like Van Dijk, obviously doesn't anymore, to get back and cover those areas. When it's Yannick Vestergaard having to
I was going to say, Vestergaard seems to be a bit of a problem.
It's a big problem. The one bonus they'll have against Everton is Everton aren't necessarily the team that are going to try and expose you in behind. That's not Dominic Calvert-Lewin's game. Don't have Richarlison on the weekend, of course, banned. And James Rodriguez certainly isn't going to want to run in behind. So that might be a bit of a godsend for them. But overall, Dominic Calvert-Lewin, I think he's just on such hot form that it feels like it's just going to keep on happening, especially with James feeding in more chances. I am interested to see how Carlo works out no Richarlison, because he's obviously quite vital to this system, playing on that left-hand side. Who he's going to bring in? Is it going to be Bernard?
Iwobi, I imagine,
maybe Iwobi comes in. But nevertheless, it's a step down from Richarlison.
It's an interesting one. I'm just going to make a statement. James Rodriguez is the best player in the Premier League this season. Let's move on to the bets. You can't say anything on that, unfortunately. Joe, you're going to go James Rodriguez to score anytime. You agree with me. And Calvert-Lewin, I like that.
Yeah.
Top performing centre-forward, top performing midfielder in the league. James Rodriguez, though, statistically unbelievable. 3 goals, 3 assists, and 4 second assist passes. He's basically been directly involved in 10 of the 14 goals Everton have scored. That's why he's the best player in the league. But unfortunately, he doesn't make my bet.
Wow.
He does, though, in the Everton team. I'm going to go Everton draw, double chance. And I go Che Adams to score.
Che Adams.
Again, another player that scored a goal against Chelsea.
About time.
He's been having a lot of chances in good quality positions. Yeah. That's why I'm gone with that. So I think 11-2, that's not too bad. But I probably would back, if I was looking at the game, probably would back Everton with James, with Luca Dean on the overlap. That could be the threat in behind the defence. Let's take a look at free super tips, bet builder as well. We've got Everton to win the game, Ings to score anytime, and Calvert-Lewin anytime. Yeah,
I do think Ings is going to pose a danger to this Everton backline, who are at times, particularly Jerry Mina, a little bit immobile, and that's obviously where Danny Ings exposes defenders on the turn. So I don't mind that. I definitely think Everton come out on top here, though.
So moving on to Wolves versus Newcastle. Wolves have finally got their season started. 3 wins in a row, 3 clean sheets. Starting to look like a good defence again. Of course, Johnny has been lost to injury. Matt Doherty has gone to Spurs. Nuno Espirito Santo has finally found a way to keep clean sheets.
Yeah, just about. I'm not the biggest fan of Roman Saiz as a left wing back, it has to be said. And I'm
it's
sure,
a little bit unorthodox.
I'm sure Wolves fans probably aren't either. But Nelson Semedo looks an okay signing. I think it is a big overpayment. To be honest with you, I'm not his biggest fan, and he's obviously going to keep Adama Traore out of the team because he was playing in that role. Is Adama now going to play as a right winger? Doesn't really make sense when Pedro Neto's in the form he is at the moment. So I think there's a few question marks over Nuno's team selection at the moment, specifically given that Ruben Neves didn't start either against Leeds. I thought that was a questionable choice. But I do believe that Wolves, when they get into a little bit of rhythm and Raul Jimenez starts scoring goals, they're going to be a very difficult team to stop, because some of the players in this side, I want to talk about him again. Pedro Neto, he's sensational for a 20-year-old. I absolutely love the guy. And I think he is going to be a real problem in this game.
Absolutely. Pedro Neto, man of the match against Leeds United.
Unbelievable.
Completed the most dribbles on the pitch, but also made the most interceptions, defence, attack, all that good stuff. In terms of Newcastle, they were completely undone on the counter-attack. Manchester United cutting through them like a knife through butter. Wolves could possess the same problem in that 3-5-2. The question is, Joe, are you going to be backing Newcastle or Wolves in your bet?
I think I've backed Wolves. I think fairly comfortable for Wolves this one because of that counter-attacking system. I think Newcastle get exposed pretty badly against teams that want to counter-attack, and that's all Wolves want to do. And they're probably one of the best teams in the league at it. I expect Adama Traore probably was rested for this game. Obviously was playing in Monday Night Football, came on I think at 70-odd minutes, saw getting his arms oiled up by the assistant manager. So I think he's going to cause this fairly rigid Newcastle backline a lot of problems. I'm not the biggest fan of Newcastle this season at all. So yeah, I think Pedro Neto to score, carry on that great form, but the counter-attack to expose them bad.
Let's take a look at my bet. I think it's quite similar. I'm going to go for a Wolves win the game. I'm going to go Raul Jimenez anytime. I think in terms of Newcastle, they've conceded 86 shots in 5 Premier League games. That's the most in the league. Raul Jimenez, as you mentioned, is starting to get his rhythm. Yeah. He's the guy that's been taking the shots for Wolves. That's why we're backing him to score any time at 8-5. Another pretty defensive, let's hold it, let's not take the run type bet there. Now let's take a look at free super tips bet for the game as well. We've got Wolves to win the game. Jimenez any time. Under 3.3 goals in the game. So it's an interesting one. Jimenez, Wolves, double backed.
Yeah, I'm not surprised Jimenez is being backed by you guys, to be totally honest with you. Obviously, it's a lucky deflection, isn't it, against Leeds, but nevertheless, it's a big confidence booster. And he obviously played so many minutes last season, including the Europa League. I'm not overly surprised he started the season a little bit slowly because of the lack of pre-season, and he's a bigger gentleman, and sometimes it just takes a little bit longer for them to get going.
So next up, another big game in the Premier League this weekend, Arsenal versus Leicester City. If both teams want Champions League, this is a serious game for both of them. The big concern for me, though, is Aubameyang for Arsenal. His XG is at 0.34 this season in the Premier League. That ranks him 81st. Below the likes of Gabriel, Serge Aurier, Adam Webster.
Okay, not great.
Not
great. But I think as much as Aubameyang has been struggling, and I agree with you, I think eventually Arteta is going to have to play him through the middle. I think it's got to happen eventually. He has no excuse to now. He's got the wide men to play there. Nicolas Pepe, Willian, Bukayo Saka if he needs to use him out there as well. Eventually, we've got to see Aubameyang get played through the middle. I know he likes Lacazette to drop deeper, and that kind of starts the attack, doesn't it? A little bit Bobby Firmino-esque. But the lack of Aubameyang in the box is starting to cost Arsenal. And I think with Soyuncu's major injury on the weekend, I wouldn't be overly surprised to see this the game where Aubameyang plays central.
Is it interesting? Because last time when they played each other, he played wide, scored a goal.
Yeah.
But you mentioned injuries. So last week, Leicester had 11 players out.
Yeah.
This week, only 5. How do you think that's affected Leicester in 2020 as a whole?
Oh, huge. I think the biggest blow that is continuously underestimated is the loss of Ricardo Pereira as the right back. Probably alongside Trent, the league's best right back, in my opinion, last season. And when you don't have his energy in terms of defensive output, chance creation,
dribbling,
everything about him, you have such a big hole to fill. And I think Castagne's done an okay job at the start of the season, but I fully expect when Pereira's back fit, Castagna to move to the left back role, a little bit like he played at Atalanta. And Wilfred Ndidi being a bit more inconsistent with his injuries is obviously causing big problems. So yeah, it's a bit of a shame for Rodgers, isn't it? That Soyuncu problem is a big one.
They got Fofana though, brilliant signing, played quite well in his first game. Big pressure on him. Is he in your bet?
Let's have a
look.
look.
Score from centre half?
He's not, but Jamie Vardy is, because Jamie Vardy always scores against Arsenal, which is not overly surprising. And yeah, both teams to score. I think that this without Soyuncu could be a decent game for that Arsenal attack. But Vardy always does it against Arsenal. He just loves it.
I think I'm backing you to pick up the best score from a guest on Bet Builders. I think you put some solid bets in there. Jamie Vardy scored the most goals against Arsenal in his Premier League career. He's got 10 in 10 against Arsenal. He just loves it, absolutely loves it, and that's why he's in my bet as well. And I've also gone for a slight curveball. We've talked smack about Aubameyang, but we're going to put him in the bet because it's he's failed to score in his last 4 Premier League games. The last time he went 5 league games without a goal was in 2014. Doesn't happen frequently.
No.
So that's why I kind of like expecting him to score. Vardy to score, Aubameyang to score. 10-3, simple as you like. Let's take a look at FST's Bet Builder as well. They've got Arsenal to win the game, both teams to score, and Aubameyang as well, getting backed.
Yeah, he has to be, doesn't he? Because eventually he's got to start scoring because Arsenal have rewarded him with such a huge contract that if it doesn't, then it's going to look even worse than the Ozil situation.
That's never really worked out before for Arsenal, has it? Our penultimate game of today's show, of course, is Brighton versus West Brom. Graham Potter's Brighton, an exciting team, going forward, taking shots on goal. Only Liverpool have had more shots this season. And then you're looking at West Brom. On the other hand, defence looks shot, attack looks shot. The Championship awaits, not the Champions League. The Championship awaits them.
Yeah, in my opinion, I agree with you. I think West Brom will do extremely well to stay in the league this season. And I think they've almost prepped for a life in the Championship. Bringing in Diangana and Pereira again, it's almost like they're accepting, we're probably going to drop down, but let's try and keep the players that got us back up in the first place. Not the biggest fan of Bilic either. I would be surprised to see him stay the full season at West Brom. I think he'll be one of the first managers to get the chop. But yeah, Brighton look great. Brighton look great, and they've been so unfortunate in so many games. They should have battered United. They should have put 4 past United, and it wasn't to be. Trossard continues to impress. Every week he gets better. So I'm fingers crossed for Potter. This is the one that they eventually absolutely hammer a team.
He is the hipster's choice. Is he in your bet, though? Are you backing Graham Potter's men? That is the question. Gone Brighton half-time, Brighton full-time, Mopé to score in time. So you are very much backing Graham Potter.
Yeah, I think this is the game where they seriously get a big result. I'm not a big fan of West Brom in any department. And I just think that Neil Mopé... this is the type of game where he's going to be in between the lines, causing real problems for that incredibly immobile West Brom defence that he'll score. And I think that Trossard might well get on the score sheet too. He's been so deserving of more. I think he's hit the post about 6 times this season, hasn't he? And 5 of them coming as United.
Yeah, one of these things. I've kind of gone exactly the same way there. We've got Mopé anytime, Brighton to win the game, over 3.5 goals. This could be the game. Mentioned that stat before, 75 shots in the Premier League. Only Liverpool have had more shots. Goals are going to come in this game. And that's kind of how I see it. Let's take a look at free super tips bet builder as well. I imagine it's quite similar. Brighton to win, Mopé to score any time, and most goals in the second half.
Yeah, I mean...
It's going to be a bit of a burner. It's going to grow.
I mean, everybody's gone with Mopé to score, haven't they? Do you know what? Mopé has started the season well, but he's not scoring the goals. So I think Brighton need him to start scoring some goals, because it's all well and good playing this sort of really attractive brand of football, but if you haven't got a number 9 who's going to put the ball in the net, it's big problems.
And finally, we finish off with Burnley versus Tottenham. Sean Dyche is in real trouble, right?
I mean, I don't want to say it because I actually really like Sean Dyche and I think he's been badly let down by some people at the club this summer. I think they've had an awful window, to be totally honest with you.
They haven't had a window, right?
Not really. I mean, it's just Dale Stevens, isn't it? Unless they've signed someone from the EFL over the last few days that I've missed, and he came in at 900k. So
big spenders.
It's going to be a tough season for Burnley this year. Eventually, that sort of voodoo around Dyche was going to run out, and it might well be that it happens this year, but I don't know whether that's Sean Dyche's fault. I just think that he hasn't had the backing needed by Burnley to improve this squad to a certain point, effectively. I do think that Ashley Barnes coming back to full fitness is going to be a big positive for him. So that looks like that's happened, obviously coming back into the team over the last couple of weeks. And if he can start scoring some goals like we saw at the start of last season, then they might be all right. But overall, the window's killed him.
The window has absolutely killed him. I feel like, yeah, I agree, absolutely let down. Jeff Hendrick going to Newcastle.
I know.
Absolutely crazy. But in terms of Tottenham Hotspur, it's completely different. They've had a pretty decent window. Gareth Bale made his Premier League debut off the bench. Do you expect to see Bale, Son, Kane from the start against Burnley?
Ooh. It wouldn't surprise me, so I'll say yes, just because it's an extra physical presence as well in the box from set pieces, isn't it?
It's a very, very good point, something that you need against Burnley.
And which is, with Bale, as much as we talk about how free-flowing he is going forward and his fantastic ability in that area, he is a big unit. So he might actually offer something to Jose Mourinho, who loves big units. But overall, yeah, I just think that Tottenham are going to have way too much for this Burnley team. Son and Kane, I can see causing absolute havoc in that back line. And, you know, maybe this is finally the day we get to see a Gareth Bale goal for Tottenham Hotspur, because he should have scored against West Ham.
So that's going in your bet, I take. Gareth Bale, backing him in the bet.
I don't think I put Bale in there.
You've let yourself down there. You've gone Kane anytime, you've gone Son anytime. This was the bet that came in last week.
Yeah,
so I like it.
I mean, those two's combination is one of the best I've seen, maybe ever in the Premier League. And at the moment, Harry Kane looks like the best striker in world football. His ability to drop deep and distribute and goal score is just unmatched.
The goal that he scored last week was ridiculous. The nutmeg, the little chop, the finish.
Totally unrivaled. And I can see Son's pace causing Burnley, who are quite slow side, some real issues. So yeah, I think both of those score on the weekend. And maybe Gareth Bale, but I just was a bit nervous about putting Bale in if he wasn't going to start. So I wasn't sure.
It's interesting. You see, I've backed Gareth.
Okay.
I thought, look, Gareth is going to be in my bet this week. I'm going to go Spurs win, Bale anytime. Going to go Kane anytime.
Very similar to mine, but you've gone
very similar. Back Spurs as well.
Yeah.
You know, there is that issue down the right-hand side. If Sergio Aurier plays again, Burnley get free kicks on the left side, like we saw against West Ham. That is a problem. Matt Doherty needs to start for Jose Mourinho. He's far more switched on in a defensive sense. But in terms of Bale, despite playing just 23 minutes in the Premier League, has a better XG than Aubameyang.
Yeah, I mean, that chance was probably about 0.6 by itself.
0.43.
I mean, a
close,
huge,
but no cigar.
Huge chance. But he does great to get into the position with the feet, the left onto right. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see him score, but I also wouldn't be surprised if Jose just doesn't use him. Is that sort of moment?
Yeah, no, it's a very good point. I just think Gareth Bale this week, it's in the stars, absolutely in the stars. We're going to take a look at free Super Tips bet now and see if Gareth Bale is in their bet. And it's not. They've let themselves down as well. Disappointed, guys. Going to go Son to score anytime, Kane to score anytime, and Spurs to win the game. Bit of a combination between our two bets.
Yeah, definitely. The only reason I didn't put Spurs to win the match was because they're Spurs, and you never know, it could end up being like a 2-2 when balls are just getting chucked into the box and that back line aren't particularly adept at defending set pieces.
That is a real problem. Burnley's strengths. I think Davinson Sanchez as well is weak from open play crosses. Saw him score the own goal last week. So, I quite like that, in terms of not backing Spurs to win the game. I've done that, FST have done that, and we'll see what happens. So thanks, Joe, for coming on Bet Builders. We have built some bets. I hope that you pull off some big moves.
Fingers crossed.
I reckon, I'm backing you. Top guest. David Cartledge is the current champion. Can you take him out? That is the real question. Joe, where can the people find you? Yeah, come over to Football Daily, watch us there, or every Saturday morning on Sky Sports. Big Sky Sports plug right there. Of course, go and check Joe out on social media as well. Of course, if you're going to back any of the bets that we have built, please gamble responsibly over the age of 18. Of course, terms and conditions apply wherever you are betting. I've been Statman Dave, and we'll be back next time for some more Bets Scooby-Doo.